A young girl bursts out of the McDonald's restroom. Her cheeks streaked with tears and her tiny body trembling. Panic is written all over her face as she races straight into her mother's waiting arms. The dining area, once filled with the casual hum of chatter and the aroma of fries and burgers, falls into a hushed silence. Startled patrons glance up from their meals, their curiosity piqued by the sudden outburst. Nicole, the girl's mother, instantly rises from her seat, instinctively catching her daughter in a protective embrace. She crouches to Kayla's level, gently rocking her and whispering soothing words. But as she holds her sobbing daughter close, her eyes catch something alarming, on the back of Kayla's leg. What just happened? Welcome to the Amazing Truth channel. Be sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss a real-life story that moves, inspires, and reminds us of the power of empathy. Now, let's take a closer look at what truly unfolded that day. What's wrong, sweetheart? Nicole asks, her voice trembling with concern as she holds her daughter close. But Kayla, just 4 years old, can't answer. She's shaking, her face buried in her mother's chest, sobbing uncontrollably. Nicole gently lifts Kayla's hair from her tear-streaked face and notices something alarming, a red, irritated mark forming on the back of her daughter's leg. Nicole's heart sinks. To understand what led to this moment, we need to rewind. It all began earlier that day, New Year's Day. A time for fresh starts and family moments. Nicole and Kayla had decided to spend the afternoon together. The sky was clear, the sun warm, and the atmosphere was filled with the kind of optimism that only a new year can bring. It was the perfect day for a visit to the park, followed by dinner at Kayla's favorite place, McDonald's. As they reached the restaurant entrance, Nicole reached out her hand. "You ready?" she asked, smiling down at her daughter. Kayla beamed and nodded, her small hand wrapping tightly around her mother's. Neither of them could have predicted what was waiting ahead. The park was alive with children's laughter and the golden light of the afternoon sun. Kayla ran straight to the roundabout, spinning with glee as she begged her mom for a turn. Nicole joined in, laughing with her. Kayla's joyful giggles echoed through the playground like music. Moments later, she darted off to the slides, her energy boundless. Nicole's phone rang, just for a moment. Her attention shifted. But in that brief second, she heard it, a sharp cry from across the playground. It was Kayla. Nicole's heart leapt as she turned around. Something had gone wrong. Nicole spun around at the sound of her daughter's cry. There, on the ground, lay little Kayla, her tiny hand scraped and bleeding. "Oh no," Nicole gasped, heart pounding as she rushed to her side. She gently lifted Kayla up, brushing dirt from her hands and wiping away the tears streaking down her face. After a few moments of comfort, Kayla sniffled and looked up at her mother, her voice soft and shaky. "Can we get food now?" Nicole smiled, her heart breaking a little at her daughter's resilience. "Sure thing, sweetheart." They gathered their things and began the short 10-minute walk to the nearby McDonald's, Kayla's favorite place to eat. The sky was still clear, the air still calm. But neither of them knew that what waited inside the restaurant would turn a simple dinner into a distressing ordeal. When they arrived, the restaurant was calm, almost quiet. Only a handful of customers sat at the glossy green tables, In the corner, a group of teenagers laughed loudly, sipping sodas and casually tossing fries between them. Nicole noticed one of the boys glance over and smirk at her and Kayla. But she dismissed it, brushing off the uneasy feeling that crept in. Focused on feeding her daughter, Nicole stepped into line. The wait dragged on. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, she reached the counter to order. She handed Kayla her phone and asked her to sit at an empty table nearby, letting her watch a YouTube video to stay occupied while she placed their order. But just as Nicole turned back to pay, a sharp, sudden scream rang out. Heads snapped around. The group of teenagers had erupted into chaos. Voices were raised. Chairs scraped across the floor. A fight had broken out right in the middle of the restaurant. Panicked, Nicole dropped her wallet and rushed to Kayla, instinctively placing herself between her child and the commotion. She wrapped her arms around her and tried to keep her calm by turning up the volume on the video. Staff members quickly intervened, hurrying to break up the fight and escort the teens outside. The tension lingered like smoke. Only 2 girls from the original group remained seated in the corner. They whispered and giggled, seemingly unfazed by the chaos they had been part of. Eventually, the restaurant returned to its rhythm. The scent of fries and sizzling burgers once again filled the air. Nicole and Kayla sat down at a table and tried to enjoy their meal. Kayla cheerfully nibbled at her happy meal, her earlier fall already fading from memory. Nicole took slow bites of her chicken sandwich, watching her daughter with quiet relief. Then, Kayla paused mid-bite, her expression shifting. She looked up at her mom with a sudden seriousness in her eyes. "I need the toilet," she whispered. Nicole nodded reassuringly, watching as Kayla made her way toward the restroom to wash her hands and take a break. When she reached the door, it was locked. She paused, assuming someone was inside. Turning back, she caught her mother's comforting smile and gave a small, uncertain nod before waiting quietly in the hallway. But then, something strange. From behind the closed door, Kayla began to hear muffled sounds, soft laughter, hushed whispers, the unmistakable giggle of teenage girls. The noises made her uneasy. Her young face tightened with confusion and discomfort. 10 long minutes passed before the door finally creaked open, and out stepped the same 2 teenage girls from earlier, the ones who had remained behind after the fight. They sauntered out, whispering and smirking to one another, clearly amused by something. Nicole watched them with quiet suspicion. Then she looked at Kayla and gave her a gentle nod. "Go ahead, honey. I'll be right here," she said, her voice warm and calm. Kayla hesitated. There was something about those girls that didn't feel right. But trusting her mom's presence nearby, she took a deep breath, walked into the restroom, and softly closed the door behind her. What happened next would shake them both to the core. "Mom!" Kayla's scream pierced through the restaurant like a siren, stopping conversations and freezing movement. She came flying out of the restroom, her small face red, her eyes wide with panic and filled with tears. Nicole's heart dropped. She jumped up so fast her purse fell to the floor with a thud. And she ran to meet her daughter. Every parent knows that cry, raw, desperate, terrified. It's the sound that makes your blood run cold. Kayla hurled herself into Nicole's arms, sobbing uncontrollably, her tiny body shaking in fear and pain. In the toilet, "Go look, quick," she wailed between sobs, pointing back toward the restroom, holding her daughter close. Nicole kissed her forehead and whispered soothingly, trying to stay calm. But inside, she was already unraveling. She handed Kayla to a nearby staff member and rushed toward the bathroom. As she opened the door, a wave of sharp-smelling bleach and antiseptic hit her. It was clean, but not right. Something was off. At first glance, everything seemed normal. A few toilet paper rolls lay scattered on the ground. A sink faucet dripped quietly. But as Nicole's eyes moved to the toilet, her breath caught in her throat. The seat was covered in a strange, glossy white film. It looked sticky, wet. Nicole stepped in for a closer look. Then she realized what it was. Super glue. It had been smeared across the entire toilet seat, thick, clear, and tacky. This wasn't an accident. It was a cruel and deliberate act. Nicole's pulse surged with fury. Her fists clenched. Someone had set a trap. For a child. She stormed out of the restroom, her face flushed with rage. "Manager," she shouted, her voice trembling but loud enough to stop the room. Meanwhile, Kayla continued crying uncontrollably, her arms wrapped tightly around her middle. Nicole returned and gently examined her daughter. That's when she saw it. The backs of Kayla's thighs were red, raw, and beginning to blister. Patches of her skin had been torn where she had tried to get up. The glue had ripped it away. Tears welled in Nicole's eyes, but she held them back. She needed to be strong for Kayla. "It hurts, Mommy," the little girl sobbed, burying her face into Nicole's chest. Nicole held her daughter tightly, shielding her with every ounce of strength she had, knowing that this wasn't just physical pain Kayla was feeling, but fear, humiliation, and betrayal from something as innocent as using a public restroom. Nicole's voice cut through the low murmur of the restaurant, trembling with urgency. "We need help. Now." Within moments, Joanna, the assistant manager on duty, rushed over, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. In her 15 years in the hospitality industry, Joanna had dealt with more than her fair share of chaos. Rowdy teens, late-night fights, even the occasional food-throwing standoff over cold fries. But this was different. This was cruel. And it involved a child. She quickly directed her team into action. First aid kits were retrieved, gloves snapped on, and with practiced calm, they worked together to tend to Kayla's wounds. The girl winced and whimpered through the pain as staff gently cleaned and bandaged the torn skin on the backs of her legs. Nicole knelt beside her daughter, holding her tightly, stroking her hair, whispering words of comfort. Outwardly, she stayed composed, for Kayla's sake. But inside, her heart boiled with rage. Someone had done this to her child. Intentionally. Medical care wasn't enough. Not for this. Once she was certain Kayla was stable, Nicole called a relative to meet them and take them to the hospital. As she waited, she pulled out her phone, her hands still shaking, her eyes wet with frustration. She opened Facebook and began to type. Her emotions poured onto the screen, not just anger, but heartbreak, 2. The need for justice. The need to be heard. To the two young blonde girls who thought it would be funny to put super glue on the disabled and baby-changing toilet in McDonald's. I just want you to know that I'm still having to console my 4-year-old daughter, who was unfortunate enough to use that toilet after your little prank. You may have thought it was harmless fun, but what you did caused her real pain. Shame on you. She hit post, not knowing how far it would go, but hoping someone, somewhere, would help identify the girls responsible. Nicole wasn't just speaking for herself anymore. She was speaking for every parent, every child, and every victim of careless cruelty disguised as a joke. The post spreads quickly. Outrage builds. And before long, the two teenage girls responsible are tracked down and brought in for questioning. The police take the matter seriously. The girls, visibly shaken, confess. They admit it was meant to be a prank, a joke that spiraled out of control. They apologize, both to Nicole and to little Kayla. But is that enough? Nicole listens, tears in her eyes as she holds her daughter tightly. The trauma may fade, but the memory will linger in Kayla's mind for years. For a 4-year-old, even a moment of fear and pain like that can leave a lasting scar. Still, Nicole is relieved to know the authorities took action. It brings a small measure of justice. Weeks later, as she sits quietly sipping tea, watching her daughter play peacefully with her Barbie dolls, she feels a sense of closure. Kayla is smiling again, and that, to Nicole, is the first step toward healing. What an unforgettable story, one terrifying moment that transformed into a powerful life lesson. Let this serve as a clear reminder. What may seem like a harmless prank can have deeply painful and lasting consequences. Kayla and Nicole's experience is more than just a cautionary tale, it's a call to empathy. A plea to consider how our actions affect others, especially the most vulnerable among us. If this story touched your heart, the next video on your screen will surely move you as well. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story that matters. Until next time, be kind, stay mindful, and remember, your actions have power. Use them to make the world better, not bitter.